Hi friends, good morning. It is currently 6:20 in the morning and in about 10 minutes you and I are going to be kicking off a 12-hour reading challenge. The name of the game is to just simply see how much I can read within a 12-hour period, how many pages, how many books. The hope is that I will be reading straight through for those 12 hours and pausing the clock anytime I stop. It's honestly just like a bit of an endurance test. I'm just curious how much I can read. And there's truly only one way to find out, and that is to start the clock and just count the pages. Structurally speaking, the readathon itself is going to start around 6:30 a.m. my time, and in theory could end as early as 6:30 p.m., but realistically with like a few breaks here and there, it probably will end 7 or 8, but we shall see. I have already picked my TBR, so let's go ahead and run through the books. I have 4 books on my TBR, all across a few different genres to try to keep things fresh and interesting as we move through the hours of this readathon. Starting off, I'm going to read Yesteryear, which I feel like is a very hyped book that is everywhere. This is a literary fiction, thriller, absurd novel about a woman who is a present-day homestead influencer who gets transported back in time and has to live in the 1600s. A lot of my friends say this is like a super quick, mesmerizing, disturbing read, and I'm hoping that stands true because I'm gonna hopefully read this quickly. I also thought picking up a Brandon Sanderson novel might be a good idea because I read his books super quick, and I have also been meaning to read The Isles of the Emberdark by him, which is one of his newer secret project releases. Structurally, this book is also super interesting. It has full page illustrations, though it is almost 500 pages, but that should in theory be okay. But I'm also hoping to get to this. For a bit of a palate cleanser read, I have Exit Lane, a very short contemporary romance story that is inspired by When Harry Met Sally, that I hope is adorable and charming and full of great banter. And again, like the length is very appealing to me. So if anything, maybe this could break up some of my longer reads. Finally, I have Steel Gods by Richard Swan. I have about 130 pages left of this book. I read this book so slow, so it didn't feel conducive necessarily to include it on the front end of my readathon TBR. But if for some reason I finish those other books, I am gonna circle back to this because I am loving it, but I read it like 60 pages an hour. So it's like not very speedy. So those 120 pages will take me quite some time. But this is a horror fantasy story, the second installment of a fantastic series. So I am looking forward to finishing this. And if I'm able, I will over the course of today. That is my TBR. The final step is to set up some initial morning ambiance, making some coffee, lighting a candle. Sunrise is just around the corner. And this is actually like my peak reading time. Probably my slowest reading time, but mentally my best reading time. But yes, I'm excited to take y'all on this journey with me. I'm really hoping I'm able to read over 1,000 pages, but you never know. We never know what's exactly going to happen, but I will try my best. So let's go make some coffee and such and such. First book of the vlog is Yesteryear, so let's go ahead and do an hour sprint, and I'll check in with y'all to see how many pages I was able to read. I feel like my page speed can range anywhere from like 60 to 100 pages depending on font size, genre, all of those variables, so it'll be interesting to track. Okay, first hour down and I have read 85 pages, which I think is pretty good for such an early morning reading sprint. And this book is super engaging. I would say it reads quite quickly. It kind of throws you in the story right away. So Yesteryear follows our main character Natalie, who is a trad wife influencer, and the book opens up kind of like in a day of her life, like making content, being with her family, dealing with the online community, all these types of things. It's very interesting. She's not supposed to be likable, but she is interesting, and in some ways, like, the more you get to know her, you can understand her, which I think makes her quite compelling. But the hook of this book is she's this trad wife influencer who gets transported back in time to the 1800s. So she now suddenly has to sort of walk the walk and talk the talk of all the things that she's been putting online for so many years. And we have this sort of mixed timeline. We have literally a timeline where she was in present day and now she's gone back in time. So we're following her as she's like trying to rationalize like where she is, like escape, like process all of that information. But interspersed with those chapters, we also get a glimpse into Natalie's past, like her upbringing, her time in college, which I think really fills her out more as a character. And as I said, like makes her quite compelling, and you can you get to see into her brain, and while you might not agree with her brain, you can understand her. At least it's just like an interesting setup. And I'm finding it to be quite engaging, and I'm really curious to see like where the rest of the story is going to take us. But I feel like I'm reading this book pretty quickly, 85 pages in 1 hour, not bad, kind of splitting my fastest and slowest time, which I feel like is pretty good. I am gonna grab another cup of coffee and we're gonna start with my hour 2 sprints. Let's keep this party going. Hopefully I'll be on page like 180 next time we check in. But we're off to a good start. 112 complete. Alexa, set a timer for 1 hour.
1 hour timer started.
Hour 2 is complete. I was able to read 95 pages, meaning I'm on page 180. This book is quite the quick read, and I would say I'm about 50% of the way done in the first 2 hours. The thing about the story is that we're in Natalie's head, and the dissonance between what she says to herself and how she's like surviving the choices she's deciding to make, be it her living a certain type of philosophy that she was raised in, her husband, the expectations that she's supposed to have as a wife, her own decisions and how she wants to move through the world, kind of things that she sort of tells herself to make herself feel better about these choices versus like her clear and obvious feelings about it, is quite haunting and disturbing at times. And you see how she's like so angry really at herself. Like it's very clear that she hates herself and a lot of the people around her, but she has to internalize that and then redirect those feelings to other people, and you see her do that, and it's bananas. All that aside, that's all kind of in present day, but seeing her try to like rationalize also the 1800s time period that she's currently existing in, also pretty bananas. I'm very curious to see like how this book is going to culminate. I'm obviously like in the thick of things right now. Almost on page 200, but we got to keep reading. I'm going to read 1 more hour, and then I'm going to pause for breakfast because I'm getting hungry, but we're going to get another hour in before we do that.
1 hour timer started.
hour 3 and I've read 103 pages. I'm on page 283, but I'm starving, so we're gonna go make some breakfast. And Matilda is asleep over there in the silliest of fashions. This book is good. I wouldn't say it's like the best thing I've ever read, but I do think it's quite sensational. So it reads fast and maddening and like frustrating in all of those ways. And I think the concept is an interesting one. I actually thought we would be spending more time in the past than we are. We're actually spending a lot more time kind of following the timeline of Natalie's life, you know, from her early adulthood to getting married, to settling into her marriage, becoming a mother, becoming an influencer, all these little dominoes that are kind of crashing all around her, and this like life and image that she's built up for herself, and how she's been struggling her whole life to like maintain this image of like this perfect Christian woman, and how it's always been hard for her. And instead of like allowing herself to be someone different, she just keeps building a bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and more public facade, which obviously is like even more overwhelming. It's interesting. I'm reading it fast, obviously. I have about 120 pages left, I want to say. So should be able to finish in the next hour and some change. First book down, but before we start hour 4 of reading, I want to make some breakfast, so we're gonna do that. Alrighty, it's now time to go sit down and start hour 4 of reading. Okay, 4 hours in and I've officially read Yesteryear. My last reading stretch, I think I read 108 pages in 1 hour. My reading is getting faster and faster, though I imagine it'll slow back down again once I start the next book. Like the further I get into a book, the quicker I read it, if that makes sense. But so far I'm pretty pleased by my pace. Yesteryear as a book. Honestly, reading this felt like a fever dream. It's a very intense, dark, disturbing read. And I think as you go along, it unravels more and more and more and more. Obviously, we're living and existing in this story through our main character's point of view, who is not at any point framed as a good person. And I think the escalation of her personality becoming more and more unstable and volatile is definitely a big part of this book. That being said, the whole end, the whole culmination of everything, which I won't speak on specifically, it was interesting. I do feel like I read this book so fast. Obviously, you bore witness to that. So I think I need to like sit with it and digest on it more to like fully decide like how much I liked this. It's a book that really gripped me, but like how much, like, is this gonna stay with me? I'm not sure yet, but I don't have time to really ponder on it yet because I need to move on to my next book before I let more time slip away from me. But it was explosive and it did hook me. It almost felt like I was reading a movie, which makes sense because it's already going to be adapted, and part of me is like wondering, was this like written to just be a movie so it could be a book to movie? I could see what the author was doing. How I feel about it, I don't know, but I did read the whole thing in 4 hours, which is fast. So if you want like a fast read this. It wasn't bad. Was it fantastic? I don't think so. It's somewhere in the middle of that. But we gotta move on to book 2, which is going to be The Isles of Emberdark, which I'm excited about. I think pivoting to a standalone fantasy story feels like exactly what I feel like reading next. Brandon Sanderson's prose and characters, while having intensity, I think is going to be a little more like heartwarming, which I want, at least maybe. Who actually knows? This could be quite dark, but I'm sure there's going to be characters I like, which will be a nice palate cleanser after Yesteryear. But I have read 391 pages in 4 hours, which I'm pretty proud about. But I'm gonna pivot locations to my living room, put on some reading ambiance, light a candle, such and such and such, and we're gonna move on to my second book of my 12-hour reading vlog challenge situation. So 4 hours in, 391 pages, one book down, moving into the next section of this. Hour 5, Brandon Sanderson, Isle of the Emberdark. This has illustrations, which I always love. So anyway, let's get to it. Necessary. Okay, let's start book 2. Hello, very cozy on the couch with my hour 5 reading update. I was able to read 60 pages of Isle of Emberdark, which I know is a little bit slower than my recent pace, but this book definitely opens with a lot of world building and information, just getting settled into a brand new fantasy world and planet within the Cosmere. The good news is I'm engaged within the story right away. It opens up on a planet that is sort of at a crossroads, and a character that sort of feels like they're a remnant of this planet's past. And essentially this planet has a rich culture, rich history, and part of that history is the tradition of trapping, where individuals live on these far distant islands on this planet and live amongst nature there. And nature is incredibly dangerous, but they do this because there are these birds on this planet that can only be born and raised there. And these birds are like life companions for people living here. They also kind of have like some magical abilities. And Dusk, our main character, was a trapper for most of his life. But at some point, aliens from another planet came here and have started giving technology or kind of trying to force trade agreements. And it's sort of rapidly changing this planet's politics, landscape, technology. And so much has changed in kind of like a brief period of time. Obviously, this alien invasion is giving like colonial forced trade agreement vibes from like our own history. But so far, I always really love encountering Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere worlds. They're so distinct and interesting, and the magic is great. Dusk as our main character is so great. And what's working really well narratively speaking is we're following him in present day, kind of facing this ones above threat from these aliens in this kind of new place that he's living in. But we also are getting stories from his past when he was living as a trapper on one of these faraway islands, getting, you know, a better understanding of like, not just like his passion, but like his culture and his like duty as someone raised for this task. And he's just so capable, and the nature setting is really cool. It's giving explorer and like all of those types of things. But yeah, I'm really liking it, and I'm excited to see where the story is going to take us. The first chapter of this book centered dragons, and I'm like, where are we going with that? Haven't seen a dragon since, but the bird thing is also cool. My eyes are starting to feel a little fatigued, but I'm trying to ignore that. I'm going to do another hour of reading, then we're going to break for lunch. And by break, I need to just like make lunch and eat lunch. I need sustenance, but we're going to do an hour of reading, hit the halfway point, and then we're going to carry on. Keep on trucking, you know? Hour 6 is officially complete. I also read 80 pages during that sprint, meaning I've read 530 pages over a 6-hour span. I'm locked into this book because I'm really liking it, but I'm also starting to feel quite fuzzy in my brain. Like, I'm losing sense of time, space, and reality. That being said, though, I'm really liking it. And structurally, this book is so cool. I just got to the second part of the story. And part 1, all the pages are like normal cream colored. But there's a shift, both literally in the location of the storytelling. And now a chunk of the book is told with this style of pages, and it's so interesting. It works really well because light really a part of the mythology of this world. So I think Brandon Sanderson is like structurally using that within the book, which I think is cool. This book is also centering a variety of characters, locations, different journeys. I love a quest and expedition, okay? And this is definitely that. And I really liked part 1. I literally am like 5 pages into part 2, and like a lot of new stuff is now being thrown at me once again. But I'm intrigued. And also, of course, this edition is just like so stunning with these full page illustrations. And yes, so far, so good. 140 pages. I don't actually know how long this book is. It is 461, 320 pages left, which feels like a lot of pages. I'm still very confident in myself. But I can't believe I have 6 hours left. But I can do it. I just need sustenance. We're gonna make lunch. Okay. Lunch is made. We're gonna go eat and start hour 7 of reading. Full honesty time, it's been an hour and a half and I've only read 30 pages. I think I just needed a minute to mentally reset, but we have 4.5 hours left and I'm ready to lock in now. So we're going to do that. I'm going to fully lock in. I'm really hoping I can finish this book, though I think I have at least 3 hours left of this book. I'm gonna go as fast as I can. It's really good. I'm loving the Cosmere world building. I'm loving the characters. I'm loving how the story was kind of focused and I was like broke open in the second half, but enough chatting. I gotta read. 4.5 hours left. We gotta get to it.
1 hour timer started.
Okay, we're back focused. I am now 8.5 hours into this readathon. I just read 80 pages during that last reading sprint, which we're happy with. I'm like 60% of the way through this book and I'm really liking it a lot, as we've already established. I think it's a really cool mix of like found family, expedition, nature. There's also this cool mix of like sci-fi and fantasy going on, which I love the direction of that within the Cosmere. I think it's very logical and I think it makes for some very uniquely set stories. I'm really loving a lot of our main characters. Great main characters, great side characters, great lore. It's also making me want to like remind myself about some things in the Cosmere. Like there's some clear references in this to like the Way of Kings and also Mistborn, which I'm tracking, but also like, am I tracking everything? I never know with the Cosmere. I'm always Googling after the fact. But yeah, okay, 8.5 hours. We're gonna do another hour reading sprint. What's the math? 3.5 hours more of reading sprints, but I just wanted to do an update because it's been an hour. So let's do another hour. Let's keep it going. 9.5 hour mark. I have read another 84 pages. We are officially in the home stretch of this book, which honestly has been incredible so far. I'm really, really enjoying this. But I'm gonna go grab a little bit of a sweet treat. There's Matilda, and go read in a different, more sunny location because I've been in this room for too many hours. Sweet treat is, of course, a popsicle of choice. I think we're gonna go with blue this afternoon and finish my book. We're 10 hours and 42 minutes or something like that into this reading marathon. And I've officially finished my second book. Hold your applause. I've read the last 140 pages since our last check-in of this story, and I loved this. This was great. I love Brandon Sanderson's standalone Cosmere novels. He honestly does like what I wish Star Wars would do more often. Obviously, there's this big epic story happening and huge plot movements that, you know, impact everything at large. That being said, though, there are still so many fantastic smaller scale stories that can still exist in the Cosmere. There's so many really cool planets we can explore, cultures, magic systems, people to meet and to like learn about. And I feel like through a lot of these standalone novels, we get that opportunity, and they're always just super entertaining. I feel like they expand my lore knowledge of the Cosmere, but like it's not even really about that. It's more about like the characters in the story that you're experiencing. And I feel like you could pick this up with no Cosmere knowledge and still have a fantastic time. Like, it is a standalone experience that enriches the overall Cosmere experience, which I appreciate. That being said, though, what a great mix of things. I loved the message, the concept of this so much. I loved the bringing together of some really unlikely characters, kind of a cross-cultural exchange, if you will, some beautiful moments of character growth and character messaging. I loved the main characters in this, which I feel like Brandon has had some really solid characters as of late, which I appreciate. I love that we got to learn more about this specific location, and also was introduced to a whole new world and culture, and also just how like the magic system he's created can exist in so many different ways. And it can take so many different forms, and I think that was really cool to read. This also had like such an exploration quest journey element to it. There was so much about like nature, preservation, change, and how it can be good and bad, and like what to hold on to, what is okay to let go, and there was like a lot of rumination about that, and I thought it was beautiful. I just loved the main character Dusk so much. He was so cool and so capable. He had a skill set that was so interesting to read. And I loved how Brandon Sanderson made his skill set applicable in some very unlikely scenarios. And it was just really great. Like, I just really loved the story. Honestly, a great book for a readathon because I found it to be engaging right away. The beginning was maybe the slowest part, but not in a boring way, just that there was like a lot of world building to experience. So I just had to read it a little bit slower to make sure I was following everything. But once I was like in the story, it felt like a really enjoyable, quick, entertaining read with a lot of heart, with a great plot, beautiful illustrations throughout it with my special edition. And yeah, I really liked this. This was solid. I didn't know what to expect going in, but the last few secret projects I've read of Brandon Sanderson have all been spectacular, which we love to see. I have 120 minutes left, which, is that what it is? Not 120 minutes, that's 2 hours. I have an hour and 20 minutes. I have 80 minutes left of this readathon. So we're moving on to my third book, which we've already talked about, is Exit Lane, which is a When Harry Met Sally contemporary romance. It's not very long. I've read 852 pages. I don't think I'm able to cross the 1,000 page mark, which is a bit of a bummer because I really wanted to try, but I feel like I've been otherwise quite successful. But I am gonna actually see if this exists on audiobook, so I can move around. I have been literally sitting, laying down for over 10 hours. And quite frankly, I need to move around. I'm feeling a little stir crazy. And I also think it would be nice to give my eyes a break. I'm gonna get the audiobook up. This audiobook does not have the best score. It's too late. We're gonna try it. Okay, wait, JK, Clay actually did a lot of cleaning while I have been reading all day. So I'm gonna go touch some grass. I think getting some fresh air would be very excellent for me. And I can actually really listen to a pretty fast audiobook whilst I'm walking. So I'm hoping I can get like 2 hours of the audiobook listened in an hour and 20 minutes. You know what I mean? So Let's go. Hi guys, it's Reagan and welcome to the end of the vlog the next day. As you guys know, I've officially completed my 12 hours of reading, and over the course of those 12 hours, I was able to read 948 pages from these 3 books right here. Do you want to also just shout out, not technically included in the readathon, that night I did actually also complete Steel Gods because I wanted to get it off my TBR. So I actually have 4 books I could technically talk about, and this did bring me over 1,000 pages, but I won't technically count it in the page count because it wasn't during the 12-hour period. But let's run through everything I was able to read. I do still, of course, need to finish Exit Lane, which is a rom-com When Harry Met Sally-esque story. I listened to 96 pages of the audiobook. It is a fast read, so I think I'm just gonna carry on with the audiobook over the next week or so. I'm currently puzzling, as you can see behind me, so I feel like that will be a perfect companion for that. I don't have any like super strong thoughts or feelings on this so far. I like the audiobook enough, so we will carry on. Yesteryear. And I've now sat with this book mentally for about 12 hours or so. And my conclusion with this is that I liked this, I didn't love it. I can understand why it's getting a lot of hype. I can understand why a lot of people are breezing through it, especially as a summer read, because it is quite compelling, I think, conceptually, and narratively it does really pull you through. I mean, I literally read this in 4 hours. So I think that speaks to how propulsive it can be. That being said, I think, I don't want to say too much because I don't want it to be too spoilery, but I think I wanted a bit more from the high concept of the 1600s time period. And while I found the ending interesting, I don't know, I just wasn't left with as much of an impact from this as I was expecting. And I really don't want to say much because I really don't want to spoil it, but I'm really curious what you guys thought about this in terms of like a main character that's not likable with a really interesting setup and premise. Like, this really delivered on that. I almost wanted it to be like more, like it could even push it even more. Those are my thoughts. That being said though, I did love Isles of the Emberdark by Brandon Sanderson. This maybe is like one of my favorite standalone Cosmere novels by Brandon so far. This was just incredibly charming. I love the characters, the concept, the sci-fi fantasy blend of the Cosmere like really shined here. I will say, I don't think you should read this unless you've read Way of Kings or Mistborn, because there is a few references that might lean a little bit spoilery, so I do want to call that out. I think just like as a standalone zoom in story within this world that he's created, it was just really, really, really successful, and I love that. I think I said this in the vlog, but I feel like he's doing what I want Star Wars to do. Like, there's endless planets, there's so many sub storylines we could be following that are interesting and maybe not like, you know, at the level of like the primary storyline stakes, but still are important and significant to wherever they're taking place. And I feel like he's doing that so well. He has endless options in terms of what types of stories he wants to tell, because he can just put it somewhere else. Like, the planet can be unique and interesting, and it always just creates such a really cool reading experience. The special edition in particular was quite excellent. I loved this. And then I'm just gonna include this, even though it doesn't count, but like, so I can start my next reading vlog fresh. I read the last like 140 pages of Steel Gods by Richard Swan. So dang good. The horror fantasy combination, the creature horror, the religious horror, the body horror in this were so good, like so disturbing. And how he's expanded the fantasy world to include new, you know, not just like governments and places, but like races of fantasy creatures. Super interesting. I love the characters. Just like, Richard Swan's writing is incredible, and just like this kept me on the edge of my seat the entire time. Even if the font of this book is like painfully small, like that should not be allowed. But this as a book, incredible. And I'm sad I have to wait for the next installment, but I know it's going to be fantastic. But yes, friends, that is the end to my 12-hour reading challenge. Very fun, very rewarding, and also helped me catch back up on my reading challenge a bit for the year, which we love to see. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you soon with another one soon. Goodbye.